Hey, this is Meredith Elliott Powell, and welcome to Thriving in Uncertainty, the show where we dive into the strategies, we discuss the steps, everything that you need to know to turn all of this uncertainty to your competitive advantage. Now, I got to tell you, I am big time excited today because we have the myth, the man, the legend, Mario Martinez with us today. My favorite title of all the titles you have, Mario, is Modern Sales Evangelist. So welcome to the show and welcome to helping everybody who's listening to us today really learn how to thrive in uncertainty.
I love it, Meredith. Modern sales evangelist it is, and what a great introduction. I'm not deserving of that, but thank you so much, my friend. I'm excited to be here with you.
Well, great. Listen, you have so many titles. So for the couple of people out there watching that may not already know you in the world of sales, tell us a little bit about you.
23 years inside of sales. I started out as a telemarketer, now called BDR, SDR. And
Right.
I was working for a software company. I've been in both software, in services, in infrastructure as a service, in SaaS, and telecom. Those are the sectors I've played in. I've done everything from SMB to public sector and federal to globals and nationals, majors, mid-market commercials. I'm born and raised a sales guy. So out of my 23 years, 18 of those years have been spent inside of corporate. My last stop was a VP of sales for a SaaS technology organization. And then I did something that was new and different in the marketplace. I launched a digital sales training program internally. And 3 months later, after LinkedIn asked me to speak at their annual users conference, I was getting questioned by senior leaders and other organizations to help them launch their programs. And I went out on my own. And so this January will be 5 years in solo entrepreneurship. And then come April of next year, it'll be 4 years after having started Vengreso, which basically is a digital sales training company. And we help sales teams and sales leaders create more sales conversations using digital technologies and helping them with the skills.
So I would definitely say you are a man who was ahead of his time. Would you not agree?
Totally agree. In fact, it's funny you mentioned that, Meredith, because when we look back at the history of Vengreso, when we started almost 4 years ago, we predicted that the world and all of selling would go virtual and remote within a 5-year period. But I will tell you that was way ahead of its time, and the prediction probably would not have come true in 5 years. It probably would have taken a good 7, maybe 8 years total, so another few more years. But as with anything in life, everything has a way of changing like that. And unfortunately, the global pandemic hit, which created a remote selling environment that I believe will be here for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Here's the kind of the interesting thing. I mean, what a year for sales this has been, right? I mean, one of the most fascinating things that I find about sales or interesting about sales has been the fact that even though sales is a very entrepreneurial thing, even if you work inside a company, as salespeople, me too, we were sort of stuck in our ways. It isn't like people really went to digital. And a lot of sales professionals kind of got hit with a little cold water when COVID hit, and we all had to change our ways because the golf tournaments were gone, the trade shows were gone, hey, I'm going to take people to lunch or a cocktail party. All of that was gone. I'd kind of like to get your take on the year and sort of what you see have been the biggest challenges and some of the things that you are advising salespeople to do to overcome those.
Some great thoughts and question. You remember when the ice bucket challenge was going viral, whatever it was, a year ago or 3 years ago, whatever it was?
Yeah.
Maybe it was longer than that. I may be outdating myself, but here's what I think happened. The ice bucket challenge probably should have gone viral this year when you had sales teams and sales leaders that were stuck on stupid with respects to where the world was going. And up until March of 2020, Meredith, I do on average about 200 executive meetings per year. And up until March of 2020, still 60% of sales leaders that are usually the VP and higher level, those individuals, my peers, our peers, my age, our age, and above, we still we're spending 60% of our time convincing sales leaders that their sales reps needed to understand and learn digital selling skills because they weren't convinced that the buyers were there. So April 1st, 2020 came. The ice bucket challenge should have been repeated, should have been thrown on top of those sales leaders because they were basically frozen in ice. They didn't know what to do, and they didn't know how to move forward. So they just started saying, well, use LinkedIn. Well, we'll send them an email. Use email. Send more emails. Let's get sales loft. Let's get outreach. Let's get SAN. And just start pumping out, more automation, more automation, more automation. And that was really, as most sales leaders now will tell you, that was definitely not the right way to approach the whole entire program. So with that in mind, many, many, many folks have been challenged. And in fact, because we do teach LinkedIn selling skills, it's so sad to see so many sellers when they're engaging with me and trying to sell Vengreso something and how they're doing it the wrong way. And I'm not talking about a onesie twosie. I'm talking about anywhere between 5 to 10 outreach touches I receive per day on a minimum. That is all done wrong because sellers are doing it the wrong way because they're doing it the way they think that they want to, as opposed to how they think the buyer wants it to be done. And that's really the big difference right now, I think, in 2020, that a lot of sellers learned, as we look back in history, a lot of sellers learned, oh, shoot, it's not because I want it. The buyer has to want it, and the buyer will come when they are ready to come. And now that we are completely a remote environment, if you look at what happened, we're all remote selling, virtual sales, whatever you want to call the term, it all means the same thing, in my opinion. But if you look at that perspective, that pendulum swung from, field sales with maybe only 30 to 40% of our team being inside sales to all the way over here.
Yeah.
To the other side, that pendulum now, everybody 100% is a remote sellers. And here's where I think organizations have really figured this out. Now it's been 10 months, and guess what? The pandemic isn't going away. And scientists don't even expect herd immunity in the domestic US, until July of 2020, that 70% of the US population will have immunity from this unfortunate disease that's been going around. So with that in mind, we're still here. And what organizations have realized, leader after leader after leader that I have spoken to, they all have said, from chief sales officers and revenue officers at Fortune 100s down to the smallest companies, we're not going back. And they've realized that there's so much more benefit that they can get in terms of productivity, efficiency, and still hit the same or better numbers by allowing buyers to buy the way the buyers wanted to buy in the first place, which is through digital communication. But more importantly, that sellers are able to be just as successful doing this through virtual and remote selling. So I think if you look at 2020, it was an ice bucket challenge for all of the sales leaders, our age, 45 and older. We didn't know how to do it. We didn't know what to do. And most of us still don't know how or what to do. We're still trying to throw things at the wall to see what sticks. So I've got some predictions about the future of 2021 sales and what will happen. But one of them is that remote selling is here to stay, and it's not leaving tomorrow.
What exactly how do you define digital sales? And I want you to add in with that, is it, because I get the same thing. I'll get like 10 people reaching out to me on LinkedIn, and I just can't believe, I've never met you. I don't know who you are. It's so clear you know nothing about me, but you're trying to book an appointment with me to sell me something that I don't even know if I need. Were we acting that way in traditional sales and we just brought the same strategy over? Or is something getting, or is it just so new to us that we're fumbling through it? And again, backing it up with, how do you define digital sales?
So let's start with the digital sales, and then I'll answer the question of, were we just doing this before and now it's getting worse because there's more of it? So digital selling is, simply put, leveraging digital mediums to be able to engage and connect with our buyers. So if you think of text messaging, digital, social media, digital. If you think of email, that frankly is what I put in the bucket of traditional sales, but clearly falls in lines with definitely a digital. But our sellers have always been using email for a long period of time. Leveraging video as an example. So one-to-one personalized video communications. Those are all digital mediums. Now, things like gift marketing, has come up as a big tool from like folks like Postal.io or Sendoso, some common household names that we know in the sales tech world. And those are become very, very popular in relation to digital. So if I think of traditional selling, we had the phone, we had email, we had networking events that we always attended, and we also had sometimes referrals. Like that's the core, that's the nucleus. And now in a remote selling world, where does that fit in? Right dead center in the middle. But now what we need to be thinking about are all the other omni-channel ways to be able to engage with our buyer, and that includes social, video, text, digital referrals, gift marketing or direct mail as an example, and then even including artificial intelligence and how we leverage artificial intelligence to communicate as bots and those types of things. In fact, one of our largest deals that I just got asked to sign the contract, or half the contract. So we have an MSA and we have an SOW. We finished the MSA. Our largest deals in company history came off of a chat bot off of our website that started a conversation, right? So with that in mind, that is what digital sales is. And as a digital seller or remote seller or a virtual seller, we need to understand how to wield the sword, the axe, the knife, the nunchucks, whatever it is, whatever item you want to call all these omni-channel approaches, you need to understand how to use every single one of them. Because here's what happens, Meredith. If I'm selling to company A and it's buying committee, John may prefer an email, Susie may prefer a phone call, Billy may prefer text messaging, and I've got this in my own base. One of our largest customers, which is Proofpoint, a cybersecurity company. Proofpoint, I know that my chief buyer, he doesn't respond to emails. But if I send him a text message between 6 and 8 o'clock in the evening, guess what? He responds, right?
Yeah.
And so those are the things that we need to understand. However, if I go to another account, I know that the chief sales officer of a Fortune 100 account, if I send him an email, he's going to respond lightning fast, way faster than I would if I were to call him up on the cell phone. So what is digital selling? That explains it. It is understanding how to leverage the digital mediums, the omni-channel approach with the core traditional approach in the nucleus in the center right there, and leveraging all channels and understanding that every buyer has a different preference. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, there was a second part to your question, which I forgot. What was the question?
Well, no, that is, and I really, something I want to, I want everybody to take away from this, and that is something that you just said. Every buyer has a different preference. I think that is so important for buyers to be paying attention to. But the other part of my question was, are we just bringing the same bad sales skills to digital selling? Or have we gotten even worse once the second it got into a medium that we were uncomfortable with?
The answer is yes to both. So certainly no doubt, tools that are phenomenal tools like Xant, SalesLoft, Outreach, VanillaSoft, AutoClose, all those sales cadence and automation and messaging tools have grown in extreme popularity for sales organizations. But predominantly they were being used inside of the inside sales organizations. But what happened before the pandemic is we were still spitting out crap, right? And all we've done is we've amped up the crap, and we're still sending out whatever you put in. Crap in is still crap out. And what do I mean by that? Well, here's the valuable piece of information. We at Vengreso started training on what we call the PVC sales methodology. If anybody's interested, they can go to pvcsalesmethod.com. pvcsalesmethod.com. All right, what is PVC? No matter how you're going to reach out to your buyers, whether it's phone, email, social touch, a LinkedIn connection request, whatever it might be, you need to make sure that you've got the P, the V, and the C, as in like the piping, inside that message. First off, the way to get into my box or any other buyer's box is going to be through hyper-personalization. Hyper-personalization. And we're not talking, Meredith, that, someone's going to hold up the whiteboard like this and it's going to, spit in a, hi, Meredith, right? That's not what we're talking about. But if I were to actually send you a video message, I might do something like this. Oops. So I might do something like this where I'm actually physically writing this in, right? So people can know that there is actually some humanity that has gone behind that. That's just scratching the surface, right? personalization to the buyer means I'm looking at their material that they're publishing in the world of social. I'm looking at company related news and information that I can get to them, and I can actually create some topical discussions around something they've shared personally. For example, if you were selling to one of our customers, the Juniper Networks, the chief sales officer and EVP, Marcus Jewell, phenomenal guy, great guy. And if you were selling to him, what you would realize is one of his hottest topics that he's published in terms of content is the death of the relationship seller, right? Relationship selling is dead. That's his shtick. So if you were smart, you would understand that information and you would reach out and say, I read this article and I thought, okay, that's personalization. Now, some sellers are probably saying, yes, but half my buyers don't have anything on social. Okay, got it. And their companies are completely null and void and they're non-existent on the web as well. No problem. The baseline when we personalize to something is to the buyer persona, the buyer persona. So what do I mean by that? Well, Vengreso, we sell to VPs of sales as an example and above, okay? So if I were to reach out to you, Meredith, and let's just say you're a VP of sales and I'm reaching out to you and you've got nothing on social, the company is non-existent, there's really nothing there that I can use to personalize to one-to-one communication. No problemo. What we do is we say, hey, Meredith, I'm reaching out. Generally, when I reach out to other VPs of sales, they have two common problems. Number one, they want to be able to have their sellers create more sales conversations. And number two, they're trying to increase sales pipeline. All right. If you're a recipient of that message and you read those first two sentences, you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to say what or what, Meredith?
Yeah, I'm either going to say, absolutely, those are the two biggest challenges that I'm having, and I'd love to know what you're doing to solve them, because you have used the language. It sounds personal because it's exactly what's happening in my head. You're relevant.
Yeah. Or they're going to say, absolutely not. I'm perfectly fine. I've got all the leads I need. I've got all the pipeline. I've got 100% participation from my sellers, and we are totally good to go. And by the way, we have customers who say that. And that for Vengreso, for us, is not a target buyer if they are just fine. So I want them to say yes or no on if you're personalizing to the buyer persona. Now comes in the V for value. And every touch point, every outreach that we give somebody, we've got to bring value to the table. Because guess what? Whether we like it or not, our buyers are out there researching these problems anyways and gathering information. So we might as well serve up the information that we want them to have that's going to help them understand the step-by-step process that leads them and guides them to our solution, right? So let me continue on with my illustration using a Vengreso messaging. And I would say, these are the two problems that generally VPs of sales have. And then I might say, directly below is a webinar. I encourage you to watch this 1-hour webinar with your sales leaders or pass it to your sales managers and have them watch it with their teams. From it, they will get two things they can do right now that will instantly get new conversations in the door. Okay, so now I've tipped them off with value. What is that webinar? Well, I'm going to be using my, whoever it might be, let's just say my VP of sales, my CMO, CRO, whoever it is, and their talk track on a webinar that they can now watch. And then you might say, by the way, I've ungated this for you, so there's no need for you to put your information in, right? As a seller, we're not trying to give gated content. The second thing I would say is directly below is a blog article that discusses 5 things that you can do right now to ensure that every video that you send gets a reply. Now that's value, because I know I have those problems. I know my sellers are using video and they're not getting the high responses. I know that I want to do a couple of things right now to make an impact on my sales conversations for my sellers. Boom, I've instantly brought value. So you use content to drive the value. Then you go into the call to action. So this is a 3-part message. It's personalization, value, and the call to action. Now, most of us, Meredith, which is almost every message I receive, we want to get married on the first message.
Yeah, right.
So I'll pause there to let people absorb who are listening in. We're not trying to get married here, right? Drop the marriage proposal. A CTA can be a request for a meeting, no doubt. It can be. But it also could be a question that solicits engagement, so that you can turn that engagement from an online conversation into an offline discussion. And it might go something like this. May I ask, are you struggling with those two problems I mentioned above? That's it.
Absolutely.
Right? That's a call to action for me to say, yes, I am, and this is great content. And I might, and then at that point, now I can move into, may I suggest a meeting, right? On a reply back. It also might mean that you're asking for a meeting. But here's my thing for sellers. I don't know where this came from. I don't know when. I don't know how. Oh, that sounds like a song. I don't know when. I don't know how. But I know something's starting right now. What is? Oh, that's Little Mermaid.
Yes. You just really outed yourself with children.
That was when it was my little baby sister when she was 5 years old. All right.
Yeah.
But the problem is that we go for these, can I have 7 minutes of your time? Or 15-minute meetings. Okay, I don't know where it started from, but that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. It takes me 7 minutes on a call just to start building some rapport and relationship with somebody. So here's what we recommend. We recommend that if you're going to use a meeting CTA, you might suggest like this. May I suggest a 30-minute discussion where we can help you understand how we're solving those two problems for your peers, and you put in some client names, and address a plan that could help you into the 2021 year, right? Here are 3 dates and times that work for me. Option 1 is going to be 2 weeks out at 9 a.m. Option 2 is 3 weeks out at 1 p.m. And option 3 is going to be 4 weeks out at 4 p.m. Now, why do I do 2, 3, and 4, Meredith?
Well, I guess you want to give them plenty of times on their calendar, plenty of flex given the time zones and times of the day that work for them.
Exactly right. And keep this in mind. As a CEO of Vengreso, my schedule, good luck on trying to find something in the next 2 weeks. So don't send me a stupid message that says, can I meet with you this Thursday and today is Tuesday? No, you bonehead. No, you cannot. And no, I would not even think about doing that because do you not think my schedule is already built out? No, no. Like, we are not operating with the idea and the understanding that we are trying to put ourselves in the client's shoes and understand the digitally engaged, remote connected buyer. And my schedule as an executive is minimum 2 weeks out. So what I'm looking for is 2, 3, or 4 weeks out and giving all possibilities for them to say no. And then I say this. And then I say, however, if none of these times work, and to avoid email scheduling volleyball, I've attached my link here that might make it easier for us to schedule an appointment in the future. Does that work for you? The worst thing that a seller can do, especially an SDR, we've got the under 30 SDRs. Most of our SDRs are the under 30, right? Is say, I'd like to schedule a 15-minute meeting. Here's my link. Go ahead and book something.
Yeah.
Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy, baby. Jesus, something. Bring something out. Like, do not do that. As an executive, we at the 45 and older, especially if you're selling to 45 and older, we are bred to think, no seller, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, you better do some work to get this meeting.
Right.
You don't hand off a link, but there is a way to introduce the link into your message, and that's exactly what I just showed you. So with that in mind, I think a lot of sellers are really challenged with understanding the right way to engage with a buyer. You always leverage the PVC. And if you go to PVC Sales Method, you'll get some great insights on there. And we've got a phenomenal video on the anatomy of a great cold message, which is what I just went through. There's a whole video inside there for leading to that particular link. And on top of that, I take you through how many words this message should be and how long each one of these elements should be. And if you want that cold template, you can feel free to go to flymessage.io. So just type in HTTP, no S, colon, / flymessage.msg.io, flymsg.io. So do the HTTP, Meredith, without the S. But yeah, flymessage.io. And guess what? That entire message is built out in a text expanding tool that we just launched to the marketplace. And that entire cold template that I just referenced is also there. So you can start using it literally today.
That is such an incredible gift. I got to tell you, what I really loved about what you were talking about with the calendar and the link is the fact that when you give me 3 dates to choose from, 3 dates and 3 times well out into the future, then say, if that's not convenient, here's a link. I think as sellers, we have to understand, don't make me do the work as the buyer. And first of all, the moment I look at those dates, and especially if they go out 4 weeks, probably one of them is going to work. And just by you doing that, you've eased the fact that even if I do have to go to the link, I don't mind as much. And this whole idea of how important it is to be easy to do business with, as also sending the subliminal message that says, I'm going to do the heavy lifting here all the way through the relationship, is really key right up front.
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100%. And we need to take the friction out of the buying and selling relationship. And there's one more thing I forgot to mention, and this is something that I'm pretty passionate about. And if you think about this, Meredith, never before in buying and selling history has this one thing happened, where the buying motion is completely overlaid to the selling motion. What do I mean by that? Buyers are digitally connected, socially engaged, mobile attached, and video hungry. Never before in human history where the buying motion is overlaid with the selling motion, which is our sellers are digitally engaged, socially connected, mobile attached, and video producers. And those two things that have come together, they parlay perfectly over each other. And if we understand the buying and selling motion and recognize that this is now a relationship where it's completely glued and overlaid. Before it was totally separate. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know how to get to them. Now it's completely overlaid. We know, and you could probably stack on top of that the traditional. They're also analog based as well. Like there's definitely tied to a mobile phone and phone calling for sure. But those four things are critical elements to understand in today's buying and selling world. And gosh darn it, if people don't recognize that and they don't understand how to utilize the tools and technologies and adjust their selling motion to that perfect alignment today, right now, you will lose out. And thinking of the concept of mobile attached, why do we care about that? We are in our house. Am I really stuck to my mobile phone? Yes. In fact,
Yes.
usage has gone up. I'm sitting on the couch. I'm sitting on the toilet. I'm in bed, wherever it might be, and I'm looking at my mobile device. And with that in mind, we adjust our messaging in terms of its length to recognize that at least 50% of our users are going to read a message on a mobile device. And that's what we mean by understanding that our buyers are mobile attached.
John has asked that we repeat the link to get the template. It's http /
I know. HTTP. I'll throw it inside in the chat here. Does the chat work for other guests or just you?
I think it just works for me. Why don't you give it to me? It's HTTP.
Sure. I will just throw it in and it'll be the long form. Where'd you go? It'll be the long form, but there you go. Right there. If that should get you Vengreso.com, and then you go to /fly message, or the http //flymsg.io. Download that tool. It's a Chrome extension. You'll love it. All the training is inside the platform. And the other one that I referenced was pvcsalesmethod.com. pvcsalesmethod.com. So that has a very detailed explanation of the PVC sales methodology that I just went through a second ago.
Excellent. It is hard to believe, but we are at the end of our time. I'm going to have to have you back because I have about 20 other questions that I want to ask. But my last two are, number one is for everybody listening out there. What's your best piece of advice for 2021 as it relates to sales? And how do we find out more about you and Vengreso?
So my best piece of advice for 2021 in the future of sales is remote selling is here to stay. And a lot of this is this advice is going to sound a little bit different than probably what you were expecting. But a lot of sellers have come to me and said, I'm really frustrated. My sales leader just isn't getting it. And I don't know how to help a sales leader understand the digital need today. If you're in a sales organization that is not teaching you how to leverage the omni-channel to engage, you probably want to look for a new job, And that's probably what I would tell you, is because you've got a sales leader who is a dinosaur, and he himself or she herself are not engaging with customers the way customers want to engage. So you really should be expecting and demanding that an organization teach you the skills to engage digitally. So that's what I would say. It's here to stay, and it's not going away, even when there's a cure. And then how to find and connect with me. I'm super active on LinkedIn, of course. So feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. I'm Mario Martinez Jr., JR. And you can also go to vengreso.com and engage with us and get all of our content from there.
I highly encourage you to follow Mario. He is just a wealth of information. I mean, truly, the V coming out in that value, he delivers it in spades. Again, I cannot thank you enough for joining me today. I really want to have you back, because I feel like we just scratched the tip of the iceberg of everything that we could talk about. But thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to follow Mario on LinkedIn. Check out Vengreso, and definitely download those tools. And thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next week, where we'll have another discussion, another set of tips, and everything that you need to know to turn all of this uncertainty to your competitive advantage.